Thanks for joining us here on WRCO Radio. And as you do today, we have a fun topic. We're talking about a new business in the area. And Scott Oechsner is here from English Prairie Distillery in Muscoda. We've been wanting to hook up with him for quite a long time. And good to have you in here in the studio today, Scott.
Yeah, good morning.
Good to have you in here. So English Prairie Distilling Company, kind of give us a little background on why you chose Muscoda and your whole history.
That's a big question people ask, why Muscoda? And my answer usually is, why not Muscoda? So my wife is from Muscoda. Her name's Sue, and her original last name was Patch. So her parents were from there. Her brother lives there. Her sister still lives there. She graduated from Riverdale High School. So we were looking at places to potentially move when we got ready to retire, but we weren't really ready to retire. We thought we'd like to open some kind of a business, do something in the downtown area or uptown area, and maybe buy a building, fix it up, and just do something interesting with it. And the distilling part came because there just wasn't a distillery anywhere near here. And we thought, well, maybe that'd be a fun thing to do, and I've been interested in it, and so is she. So we decided that's where we would start, and we bought a building downtown, the old Pink Spot, if you remember where that was. Mm-hmm. We started with that. We added on to the back of the building for a distillery. We soon found out that we didn't have enough room, and luckily the building next door, which was the Tailgaters, bar and restaurant for a long time, and the Avenue and who knows what else before that, that became available. So we decided, as crazy as it sounds, we'll buy a building to save money. So along with the building, we got a whole empty lot that was right next to it, where there used to be a Blackhawk supper club, is what people remember. Mm-hmm. So we got that as well. So now we have a patio for live music and to hang out in the summer. So it's kind of a nice spot. So it worked out pretty well.
How much room do you need for the actual, distilling process and all of that stuff?
We probably have about 800 square feet in the back. We've got a 300-gallon mash tun stripping still and a 100-gallon whiskey gin still. So it takes up a lot of room in there. There's not a lot of wiggle room. The front part of the old store is where we do the bottling and storage. So I'm just relaying that out this week. I've got to go buy 4 more racks and find places for more bottles and finished goods to go in there. So.
Did you have to study a lot and learn a lot about this whole thing and how it works?
I still do have to study and learn a lot. I mean, I've gone to a number of distilleries where I've worked there for a day or two just to watch what they're doing. I've watched tons of videos like, probably everybody else. I took a couple classes down in Kentucky to learn how some of the distilling and fermentation process works. The best advice I got was from Peter at Northern Waters Distillery up in Minocqua, and I went through it with him. I kept looking at the process and the equipment and wondered, can I even do this? And he looked at me, goes, if I can do it, you can do it. So I'm like, all right, that's all I needed. So I kind of went forward from there. But really, if you can, it's really you're boiling water. And the alcohol boils at 173 degrees, so you don't want to go too much above that. So you're trying to get the alcohol to release from the water and catch those vapors and then condense them down into just the alcohol. So if you can keep things under control and keep that temperature where you need it to be, it's not as hard as it sounds.
How long is the process, Scott? From like when you start boiling till you get it.
So if you do a mash, so what you call the first part of that first part of the process is a mash.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of like brewing. So the mash tun is what you call a mash tun in brewing. It's the same thing. And distiller's beer is that first thing you get. It's at 8 or 10% alcohol, maybe 12. It just depends. So that's actually still called distiller's beer. Just like if you were a brewery, that would be the beer. So you kind of start off with that. Doing the mashing is maybe 2 to 3 hours. So you got to heat everything up, then you have to cool it down. So probably add an hour on each end of that. Once you cool it down, then you can pitch the yeast, which just means you put the yeast into that liquid. Then the yeast eats the sugars and the carbohydrates that are in there, and that's what produces the alcohol, because that's the byproduct of the yeast eating sugar.
And then you put it in a barrel? Or?
Well, so now you've got that first part. So you've got this kind of thick, weird looking, sometimes, kind of it was really sweet when it went into the fermentation tanks because there's all that sugar in there.
Yeah.
The yeast ate all the sugar, all the sweet, but so sometimes it's a little weird and a little funky. That's what you take and you put into that back in the still, and then you cook all the alcohol off of it. So you do a stripping run, which means you take all the alcohol, whether it's the good, bad, or ugly. You take all that off. Then that probably takes, I'd say probably 6 to 8 hours. So it's a slow process. You kind of stand there and watch it, and there it goes, and you come back and it's still going, and you come back and you're really just controlling the temperature at that point. Once you collect that alcohol off of that first mash, then you take that over at some, maybe right away or maybe a day or two later, you take that over to the whiskey still. That's got a number of plates or columns in it, so you can distill the whiskey over and over and over as it rises up through that column. That takes probably another 6 to 8 hours to do that. As you're doing that, then you're doing a cut run. So then you're taking off the heads, and the heads are like methanol and acetone, things you don't want to drink. You can maybe clean paintbrushes with, but you don't want to drink it. You want to get to the ethanol. That's what you can drink. So once you get to that point, that's where, if you've ever watched the Moonshiner show, they're always trying to get rid of the heads. There's the hearts and the tails or the feints. The hearts is what you want to keep. That's the alcohol that you want to maintain and keep, and then that's what you're going to use to either put in a bottle or put in a barrel.
So much science involved.
There is science. I mean, anybody that had me in high school as a science teacher would be shocked that I know anything about this. But it's not as hard as it sounds. But if I'd really gotten in trouble where I had a lot of problems with bacteria or things like that, I might need to call a real scientist at some point and have them come in. But yeah, we can do the proofing, we can do the pitching the yeast, we can do some measurements on some of those things. And I'm learning every day. It's a learning experience, because I'm always finding something out that I didn't know exactly how that worked, or I have to make a call to somebody to find out what am I doing here? Why is this going wrong?
I like the names of some of your product. Could you go over some of those?
Sure. So we got a couple products right now. So we've got a grain neutral spirit, which is it's kind of a corn-based whiskey. We just call it Muscoda Shine. So usually, you talk about moonshine. We just thought it was kind of a cool play on words to do the Muscoda Shine. And some people call it they call it Da Shine, and that's still kind of cool sounding. So I'm fine with that. But it's Muscoda Shine.
Muscoda Shine's got a nice ring to it.
We use that like a vodka in all of our drinks.
Okay.
So we have that one. The York State Rye. That's a rye whiskey. So our rye whiskey and our bourbon we're buying from another company right now as we kind of get things started. The York State came from, I'd have to look back now. I got to think about the actual date. It was back in the 1860s or 70s after the Civil War. Wisconsin was a frontier state at one point, and we don't think about it like that, but they were trying to get people to move here, and the people they were trying to get to move here were the people that New York didn't want anymore, or they wanted to get rid of. So those were Irish people, Germans, a lot of different immigrants that were coming in. They said, hey, why don't you just keep moving over to Wisconsin? You'll like it better over there. And they in one of the newspaper accounts in the Richland Observer, they called them York Staters, because there's all these people moving here from New York State. So I just decided that York State would be good, because the first thing Germans brought to the United States was rye, and they made rye whiskey. So they probably were making rye whiskey here, even in Richland County where they weren't supposed to. I thought the York State Rye was kind of a cool name. Yeah,
definitely is. Any others?
The Rail Splitter Bourbon. I'm just out for a ride one day, got up to Highway 33, and Highway 33 is the Rail Splitter Highway. So it was the original group in the Army that fought the Black Hawk Wars. So they were called the Rail Splitters, and Abraham Lincoln was in the Rail Splitters. So that's kind of how it got a famous name. So the Rail Splitters, I think that was based in Milwaukee for a while, but Highway 33 from La Crosse to Port Washington is the Rail Splitter Highway. So I just thought it was a cool name.
Yeah, that really is.
Yeah. So we'll come up with some new ones as we get new products, but we're going to try and keep them, driftless area-based names.
I'm guessing, there's a real circuit of people that just love to stop by places like this. And you're probably getting a lot of people from outside the area stopping by, aren't you?
Yeah. People just go on they go on a tour. That's what my grandparents would call it. They're going to go on tour. So it meant they were going to drive around and stop at 2 or 3 bars on a Sunday afternoon. But people will go and they'll stop off at, they'll come to our place. They'll go up to Wild Hills Winery. Mm-hmm. They'll have something up there. Maybe they'll go to Driftless Glen. They'll kind of do that little tour around the area. And then they've got these booklets that you can buy throughout the state. One's an old-fashioned book that we've got, an old-fashioned passport, so you can kind of buy one, get one, or get 50% off, but it's got 170 different places in it. There's a bourbon or a barrel book that lists all the different distilleries in the state. They've got a supper club book. There's a bunch of different things in the state that you can helps you tour around and gets you like a half-price drink along the way, or maybe something free.
What makes English Prairie Distillery unique, Scott?
That's a good question. In Muscoda or in our area, it's definitely unique the way we've set it up. We tried to do something where when people walk in the door, they look around and do exactly what you said earlier is why is this here? What are you doing? I don't understand what's going on. We tried to really fix up the buildings and give them a look and a feel that looks like it is old, or maybe would have felt like when it was first built, but is all kind of updated amenities. So we're mixing cocktails and we're doing things that are different than a lot of places. Everybody's making a drink, but we're mixing like real cocktails as we go along and offering different stuff and coming up with new drinks for every different holiday or weekend. And so now we're getting into February, so we'll get into Valentine's Day, and then we'll get into spring, and we'll get into summer. So then we offer different things that kind of reflect the season as well.
It's awesome that you've repurposed a couple of buildings,
Mm-hmm.
that were vacant in that area in Muscoda, and then also you have a unique business. So it's really kind of the best of both worlds, isn't it?
And I still have people that they see it says English Prairie Distillery, and they say, "What kind of beer do you brew?" So it's just kind of funny with everybody's so used to breweries and they're not used to distilleries. There's about I think there's 30 plus distilleries, maybe right around 30 distilleries in the state, and they're kind of sprinkled all over. Some are a little larger. You're probably familiar with like Driftless Glen and J. Henry. They're some of the bigger ones. But there's a lot of little ones like us as well.
That's good stuff. Yeah. English Prairie Distillery in Muscoda, our subject today on the morning show. Not only do you have drinks, you have some stuff for sale, but you also have a lot of live music. Probably prolific music scene there in Muscoda as well.
We're trying to have regular music on weekends. Usually, once in a while we'll do it during the week. We're open Wednesdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. So we've got open mic night the second Wednesday of every month. And one of our bartenders, Mike Johnson, who lives here in town, he just decided he thought it would be kind of a good idea. I'm like, that sounds like a great idea to me. And the first night we did it, he got there at 5 o'clock, and we sat there at 5:30, and there was nobody there, and we had a sign-up sheet, and we're looking around going, is anybody going to even come? And all of a sudden somebody came in, another guy came in, and we had 5 or 6 people the first night.
Oh, that's good.
And they're all really good too. That's what's crazy. It's not a karaoke night. It's if you're a really bad singer and want to come in and sing a song, you're more than welcome. But the people that come in they're talented. They're bringing in their guitars. He's got everything that they can hook up all their musical equipment to. So far, I think there's somebody that keeps telling us they're going to bring in an electric piano in. So. Yeah, it's been fun so far.
Down the road.
Yeah, a lot of people coming in for it. And then music on Fridays, Saturdays, or Sundays. This Saturday, Mike is playing Saturday night from 5:30 to 8:30. We close at 9 o'clock. So when you get older, 9 o'clock is kind of a good time to close. When things start to get crazy, that's when we like to close, because that's everybody can have their drinks, they can get home and not have a hangover in the morning.
Now, somebody told me that once. We're closing down now when we used to just be going out. I think that's what happens when you get a little older. Right?
Exactly, and that's kind of our demo to the people that come in. They're not the night owls. We get a lot of younger people that come in. They usually come in the afternoon while they're out doing something. They come in before they go out. But it's the people that are coming in, 30s, 40s, 50s, somewhere in there, even older. like me.
What was your previous occupation then, Scott?
So I worked in manufacturing for a long time at different companies, sheet metal fabrication. I worked for conveyor companies. So was either in operations to start off with, and I got into kind of sales and marketing.
Probably never would have thought you'd be doing this kind of business later in life, did you?
Well, it was always something I thought about. We talked about, my wife and I talked about a brewery for a long time, and in where we are, I just couldn't quite figure out how the logistics were going to work as far as how much beer we could make and how much we could sell. Beer's got a shelf life. I mean, if you go to a craft brewery, it's really only good for maybe 2 or 3 months, after that. And now you've got to find a distributor to go sell it. And liquor just doesn't have a shelf life. If you buy a bottle of bourbon or Dayshine, you can have that on a shelf. If you treat it right, it could be there for years, and you open it up and it tastes fine. So so it seemed to be a better business opportunity for us, and it makes it a little easier for distribution as well.
How long did the process take? I mean, you probably hit a few roadblocks along the way when you were trying to get started, didn't you?
Yeah, I'd say we really started talking about this about 4 years ago. So we've been buying some barrels of bourbon over the last 4 years that are aging. Our first barrels are going to be 4 years old in March. So I don't even know how they're going to taste yet. So we're bringing those down from the place we've been kind of partnering with. So those we'll start to use and bottle, and I'm probably going to come up with a new name for that bourbon. But yeah, that was 4 years ago. So we've been buying bourbon along the way, and then we started planning for the distillery probably 2.5 years ago. So we bought the first building, learned a lot about how to apply for a distilled spirits plant, the DSP, from the federal government. So there's a lot of rules. You can't even imagine the federal government has rules on how to do things. It sounds crazy, I know. But it took some time to kind of go through that and find out exactly how they wanted things, when they wanted it, when we could finally get our distilling license. So yeah, we went through. We had an architect we had to work with because of the food process inside of it, because alcohol is food. So we had to go through a food processing licensing for that as well. So that took a little time. I don't think there was anything that really stopped us or slowed us down, like oh no, we can't do this. The village has been very helpful. The Southwest Development Commission's been really helpful. The Grant County Development, everything has been worked really well. Yeah. It's been a good process. It took a long time. We opened last June, probably in between Christmas and New Year's. I just sat there and said, "We're done with phase 1 is done. We're open. We kind of know what we're doing. Now we can really get into doing more distilling and kind of getting going in that side of it more, because I've been doing some distilling, but just not as much as we're going to be doing in the future."
When you're talking about the federal government getting involved, all I could think of was, running the back roads of Richland County with, moonshine in your car.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what they're trying to guard against. Obviously.
That's what they're trying to stop you from. Yeah, that's they. I think they're probably more worried about you not paying taxes than driving around with moonshine.
Probably.
I think they'd be fine with you driving around with moonshine if they thought they could get some money out of it. Sorry, anybody from the state, the Department of Revenue that's listening right now.
But I didn't think about it too, from the food aspect. You've got to kind of mind your P's and Q's there as well, don't you?
It's a little different because we're, the things we're working with, the grains and the liquids, it's different than if you're at a cheese plant or a meat plant. They have a much stricter, higher level of sanitation. We got equipment that needs to be cleaned. We've got, it's fairly simple process for us.
Are you serving food, or are you planning to do that down the road?
At the tasting room, we have more, I'd say, snacks or charcuterie board kind of things, cheese spreads, cheese, meat, that kind of stuff. We can bring in food. Anybody can bring in food if they wanted to. People order pizzas from across the street at Sportsman's all the time, and they'll bring pizzas over. They'll buy food and bring it in, or they'll bring a picnic basket, or they'll say, "Hey, we're having a birthday for somebody. We're going to bring in 8 people, and we want to bring a cake in and some food." And that's no problem. Yeah.
Wonderful. You talked about the outdoor patio. I'm guessing you're looking forward to when the weather does get nice and you can go back there again, right?
Yeah, that'll be nice. Probably in, I'd say, maybe April we'll start to push it a little bit if the weather's halfway decent, and we'll do some music outside or things outside because at least during the day we'll be in the maybe 60s. We're going to try and open an outdoor bar this summer. We got it when it gets busy. We ran out of bar space inside for people to come in and try and get orders, so we're going to try and open a little small outdoor bar as well.
That's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Expanding a little bit. The Muscoda Morel Festival will be coming up too. I'm guessing you'll tie in with that event too.
Yep, that'll be a big one. We're doing. I'm not sure exactly. We'll have music. That weekend, probably Friday and Saturday night. I'm going to try and make a barreled old fashioned, like make old fashions in a full barrel and serve them right out of the barrel.
Oh.
So I'm still trying to figure out how I want to do that or what the logistics is of that, how I'm going to move around a 500-pound barrel of old fashions, but we'll figure that out.
Just have a ladle and just
probably maybe
out.
have some kind of a spigot on it so I can just open it up and pour out a drink, and we'll have 500 old fashions in there.
What was I thinking? I was thinking of Wapatui. They used to, everybody come and dump something in, and you're not doing that, obviously. But
no, that is not something I ever want to do again. That's a bad scene.
Oh man! So, are you currently in the process? Do you still quite often, or how often do you actually make your product, then, Scott?
So this week. I've actually got a gin product that we just started making. I've been making really small batches, like 3 bottles at a time. It's a Usonian gin. So Usonian word that was a word that Frank Lloyd Wright used. Usonia is United States, North America. That's kind of where it came from. It wasn't invented by Frank Lloyd Wright, but he liked it and he used it in his Usonian houses. That was that kind of what became a ranch-style house, that sort of flat, roof with the windows, and that's kind of where that came from. And actually, I drove past the Usonian Inn in Spring Green and thought, "Oh, Usonian Gin sounds like a really good name," and I wanted to tie in again Frank Lloyd Wright, who's more famous than that in the Driftless area.
Great. So you have those light bulb moments once in a while.
Yeah. We've also, I forgot about this one. So we do a Sugar Shack shine. So out of our day shine, we add maple syrup to it. So it tastes really good. But we buy the maple syrup from Driftless Gold, just north of town. And we were walking around, and they were giving us a tour. And I said, "Hey, up there's our original. That's our old Sugar Shack." And I thought, Sugar Shack shine. I'm like, thank you for the name. That was really easy because I wasn't sure what to call it. So I'm trying to come up with little names that are kind of catchy, and it fits it too. It fits it perfectly. So we've been making that for a while. But that we've already got we've got the alcohol, and then we just mix in the maple syrup that we buy from them.
Yeah, it's nice that you incorporate other areas, small businesses too, that.
Yeah. So I'm working on a rum right now that it tastes pretty good. It smells a little weird, but that happens sometimes with rum. It kind of gets like a little bit of a funky smell. So I'm going to make another batch of it. I want to make enough to put a couple barrels together and let it age for a while and see what happens to it. Sometimes that's the problem with like the gin. We'll be able to put that in bottles and it'll be ready to go right away. Whiskeys and rum and other things like that, they need to go in a barrel, and they could be in a barrel for 3 months, 6 months, 4 years, and you might not know what it tastes like. Another one I'm going to start doing is a single malt whiskey, which is similar. Most people would call it Scotch, but if you're not in Scotland, you don't get to call it Scotch. You get to call it single malt whiskey. But that's one of those where you make it and then you have to put it in a barrel and wait 3 or 4 years to see what it tastes like, because according to where I've been and what I've tasted, as it goes in the barrel, it doesn't taste that great. But after like the 3rd or 4th year, that's when it starts to really develop. And we can use recycled barrels for those.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like a bourbon barrel has got to be a brand new charred oak barrel. That's the rule. So bourbon is the only American spirit that is regulated by the federal government. There are rules on what you can and can't do with it. So every bourbon has to be in a brand new bourbon barrel or a brand new charred oak, white American oak. So you can't have bourbon in a French oak barrel. You could finish it, but it has to start off in a American white oak barrel, and it's got to be charred on the inside.
Where do you get those then?
There's a few places that make them in Minnesota. There's places in Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, Missouri. That's where most of them are made. Yeah.
Those barrels are pretty valuable too.
They can be expensive. The first barrels we bought, just the barrels, were probably less than $200. Now they're pushing $400.
Oh my goodness!
But there was a big boom on making bourbon for the last 3 or 4 years with some of the really big companies, and they drove the prices up. The prices for if you would just go out on the market and buy bourbon, the prices for a barrel are dropping from where they were probably 2 or 3 years ago. They're still. I think they just went a little crazy and overproduced. So if you're familiar with kind of like the bourbon people that like to go out and hunt for bourbon bottles, everybody was looking maybe 4 or 5 years ago. They were looking for like a 12-year-old or a 14-year-old or a 15-year-old bourbon, and they could find them all over the place because all these distilleries down in like Kentucky and everywhere else, they had all these old barrels. So they were bottling this stuff, and people were like, "Oh, I found this old bourbon." The old bourbon's kind of gone. And when they went crazy and started really making a lot of barrels, they were trying to refill that hole that they dug themselves. The problem is it's going to take another 10 to 12 years to get back to where there might be some of that old bourbon again. So
I'm curious, when you're distilling, have you had any perils like where you thought, you anticipated it was going to be something good after a couple of years and it really wasn't very good?
Not really. So far the things that we've tasted that are still aging, they kind of change a little. There's a lot of things happening inside the barrel, the alcohol and some chemical compounds that are in the alcohol are reacting with the wood and the chemical compounds in the wood. So you could go out and get a barrel that is 2 years old or a year and a half old and taste it and go, this thing tastes great. Come back in a month and you might taste it and go, what happened to that great taste? It's gone. And it just kind of goes back and forth. And most people, they'll wait 3 to 4 years, and that's kind of the sweet spot where things start to calm down in the barrels, and it just gets better. So you can find a barrel out there probably that you don't like, but you blend those. You find a really good barrel that has a good flavor. You find one that doesn't have a great flavor but still got a good flavor. You can combine those two and go from there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're going to be having some open mics and different things going on. Do you have goals for 2025, Scott? Some things you'd like to get done by the end of the year?
Well, I'd like to definitely be producing, some of the single malts and rums and some new whiskeys that we can age in smaller barrels that we can get done a little bit faster, or even things that we can serve that are clear. Because it doesn't have to go in a barrel. So you can have a White Dog whiskey or a clear whiskey. It's just it's unaged, so you can't call it bourbon, but they still can have a really good flavor.
Have you figured out anything you can run your car with or not?
Well, if you ever go drive past an ethanol plant, ethanol plants make the majority of the vodka in our country. And people don't think about it like that. So if you really like your vodka, you probably would really love how it runs in your car. So they've got a massive production. They make millions of gallons at a time. But the ethanol that's in your car and the ethanol that's in vodka is not very much different.
Ah.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure getting to know you, Scott. Yeah. We hope people will stop by and see you. What are the hours again for English Prairie?
So we're open on Wednesdays from 4 to 9. We're open Fridays 4 to 9, Saturdays 2 to 9, and Sundays 11:30 to 4.
And some unique drinks as well.
Yeah.
You dream those up at night? Or?
My wife, Sue, and my sister-in-law, Linda, come up with a lot of drinks. I'll send them things that I see it. They look kind of cool, and then they'll go and find different things, or they'll just find them, and they'll come up with the drinks. So, we've got a whole list of drinks that we make, and I've been bartending a little bit once in a while. So I used to bartend, and I used to do it like everybody else. I'm like, rum and Coke, who can't make that? Now I got to make a real drink, and we've got little cheat sheets that we can kind of go through. So I've also got I know kind of the basics, but I'll always forget. Like there's one thing that I forgot the thing, or I put in the wrong glass, or it happens. It happens sometimes. They like to keep me away from behind the bar.
Oh, I suppose.
I take up too much room.
Well, we appreciate you coming down to see us here today, and keep in touch. Come back, and we'd love to promote some of your live music too. So let us know when you've got somebody.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
And you have Mike Johnson. You said
Mike Johnson. Yep.
Tomorrow night.
Yep.
Yeah, good. So go down and request a song from him or something.
He knows a lot of songs.
Does he?
Yeah,
okay.
He's really good.
That's tomorrow. All right. Well, thanks, Scott.
All right. Thank you.
You bet. That is Scott Oechsner of English Prairie Distillery right there in Muscoda. Stop by and see him and check out what it's all about. On the morning show, we'll have more in just a moment.